Big Smoak.
Dick Fain, KJR. He and Softy host a show in Seattle. I don't know if Softy has been heard from or if he's even he might be in captivity where he doesn't want to be. Dick, hey, great to have you on the show. What's it been like in Seattle following the dramatic win to get to the national championship game for the Huskies?
Well, this team has just captivated the city, and obviously, like it is down there. I mean, the city is a bit split between Cougar fans and Husky fans, but primarily it's a Washington city, and this is just exactly what the Husky games have been really for the last month and a half, guys. It's been the Huskies look like the better team. They get out to a lead, look like they're one or two plays from busting open a game and maybe winning comfortably by 14 or 17 points, but then they don't make the play to bust open the game. I mean, Texas did a great job of holding them to 2 consecutive field goals, whereas if you just get one of those as touchdowns, it really looks different at the end. And then the Huskies do something, silly, like they did last night in giving Dylan Johnson the ball on all those plays instead of just having Penix take a snap and take a couple seconds off the ball and kneel down and force Texas to go the length of the field in 12 seconds. And, the Huskies do something silly. They get their running back injured and hand it to Texas. They did a hell of a job going almost the whole way to get the game-winning touchdown. And we were just in panic mode there for the last 45 seconds of that game.
So what were the thoughts on, Kalen DeBoer's did a fantastic job, and he's coach of the year for a reason, but the decisions that he made down that stretch to maybe not respect the clock as much as he should have.
Well, yeah, I think, you've heard the old Stark line, all gas, no brakes, right? Well, that's kind of what Ryan Grubb, the Huskies offensive coordinator, he lives by that mantra as well. He went for it on his own 33-yard line and with 4 minutes left to go in the first half, and they got that. Hell, he went for it in a tie football game against Washington State on his own 29 with 2 minutes left to go in the game. He went for it on 4th down at his own 29. It's just how Ryan Grubb operates. He's running double reverse flea flickers in the fourth quarter against Texas. And, that's just, he is going to live by the sword and he's going to die by the sword. And fortunately for Washington, he's lived by it every single game.
Dick, how does this feel different than the first playoff run?
Oh, God, this is, the 2016, that was just glad to be there football team. It was a good football team, but God bless Jake Browning and what he's doing for the Cincinnati Bengals right now. He ain't no Michael Penix.
Right.
I think the only part of the 2016 team that was better was the defense was better in the back end. Clearly, you had NFL players left and right. You had Budda Baker. You had Sidney Jones. You had Kevin King. You had guys that they're playing a lot in the NFL over the last 5 or 6 years. But this team, we knew a combination of this team being elite and then the fact that the rest of college football did not appear like it had a juggernaut football team. There was no 2022 Georgia out there to worry about. It was Washington and 4 or 5 other teams that were all about as good as Washington. And Texas was one of them, and Michigan was one of them, and Alabama and Georgia were 2 other ones, and those were really your 5. And Oregon was another one. Oregon was every bit as good as Washington this year. Washington just found a way to win both of those games, and so we thought that this team had a chance to win the national championship. There was no prayer that 2016 team was getting by Jalen Hurts and Alabama in that semifinal.
Dick, it's interesting because you get a team, some of the blue bloods, and Washington's got a great tradition in football, but to get there and then win it, and sometimes it's hard to get back up again, and they turn around and play on Monday against Michigan. It seemed like when I listened to audio or heard or saw some of the post game, everybody understood that this is not over. That is an experienced kind of a 5 and 6 year senior laden type team as well.
The really veteran team, guys, and that's well put. Michael Penix was even asked by Molly McGrath after the game, is this your best performance ever at Washington? He said, no, we got one more. there was no real celebrating after that game last night. I mean, there was no sense of we just accomplished something. There was, okay, this was the necessary step to get through to accomplish what we want to accomplish, and that's a national championship. That is the reason Michael Penix, when he came back in August, he was like, I came back to win a national title. And we were kind of like, oh, okay, we love the goal. You're going to be one of the top 2 or 3 teams in the Pac-12, but to get all the way to the national championship, that you might be biting off a little more than you can chew. And Michael Penix proved all of us wrong. I mean, hell, I thought they'd lose at USC. When the season started, I thought they'd probably have 2 losses. I thought they'd lose at USC and they'd lose they'd find another game that they would trip and fall, and they may be able to make it into the Pac-12 championship game. And if they could, then I think, then I thought maybe a 1-loss team could potentially make the Final Four. But this has just been a magical, magical year. And it's not like they're just falling into these wins, guys. They are earning these wins. They are grabbing these wins, and they are so freaking battle-tested in one-possession games. This is 9 straight games. They've won by 1 score. I mean, it's unbelievable. And we wanted to get into this type of game. In fact, through 3 quarters, it was way easier than I thought it was going to be. I mean, I thought this was going to be a 1-score game. I thought it would finish the way it did. But after 3 quarters, I don't think anybody thought this was going to come down to the last play of the game. Washington looked like they were walking away from this thing after 3 quarters. But hey, it's Texas. They didn't let that happen.
What is the thing that separates the connection from Michael Penix and Rome Odunze from kind of your normal, even great quarterback wide receiver duos? They seem like they share a consciousness.
They do share a consciousness. And you saw, I thought, for the most part, I thought the Texas DBs did a hell of a job. I mean, there was the one play at the end where there was the pass interference where, Rome just beat the guy bad, and that would have been a touchdown had it not been a pass interference. But for the most part, Penix was having to throw dimes 40 yards down the field to wide receivers that do such a good job of not letting the DB know that the ball is there. Have you noticed that? Jalen Polk, Rome Odunze, they just are running their routes, and they just barely peek over their shoulder, get their hands up, and the ball is just handed to them. And that's almost impossible. Like, what are you supposed to do if you're a Texas corner in those situations? They had them blanketed, and Penix is just throwing surgical strikes on the money. It's just, and that's just working together for 2 full years with these guys.
Dick, any early thoughts on Michigan? Any first impressions that you've gleaned from this upcoming matchup next Monday?
Yeah, Michigan has always been the team that of the 3 other teams in the Final Four that scared me the most, just because of their ability to consistently run the ball and stop the run. And I think the accessibility of Dylan Johnson to play is going to be huge for Washington. It could potentially be a game snatching type injury if he's not able to go, because Washington really doesn't have another option there. Remember, Cam Davis was their starting running back going into the season, and he got injured in camp. And so Dylan Johnson came on to be the guy, and we never thought Dylan Johnson would have the type of year that he has had. And he has been a bell cow and sets everything up in that passing game with what he does on the ground. And it's not like he shredded Texas on the ground yesterday, but he did just enough, right? He made the big runs. Yep. He converted those 2 early touchdowns. He did just enough where Michael Penix could do his damage through the air. I thought the Mississippi is going to come after Penix in that championship game, and that offensive line, which was great yesterday protecting Penix, is going to have to do it again against Michigan.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It's kind of a 2 different type styles, which is great. Penix was brilliant. The zone read, I thought there were a few times he could have pulled it away from Johnson and walked into the end zone from 15 or 20 yards out. Jalen Polk is a Texas kid from Lufkin High School. He had a heck of a game, that big, long catch and run. The complementary type receivers that was brought up earlier to you, kind of a nice surprise, and what a career he's had with the Huskies there up in Seattle.
Yeah, we call him Big Play JP up here because he just has a knack, right? He just has a knack for making those huge catches down the sidelines. Just phenomenal addition. And it really, with the injury to Jalen McMillan this year, Polk has stepped up and has been an all Pac-12 wide receiver. And now you get McMillan back, and what do you do, right? What do you do when you're on defense when you're facing 3 NFL wide receivers? And that's what Washington has. They have 3 NFL wide receivers out there, and who knows? I mean, Jeremy Bernard might be an NFL wide receiver as well. He had some nice plays despite having the biggest bonehead play of the game, which just swung the momentum back in the favor of Texas with that fumbled punt. But Jalen Polk is going to be missed here in Seattle if he decides to go to the NFL. We're hoping that, hey, maybe we can come back for 1 year. Let's see if that NIL can find him, high 6 figures, and we can get him to stick around in Seattle for 1 more year.
All right, Dick Fain, KJR Radio in Seattle with us on 365 Sports. Craig, one more?
Dick, I know it's all, about the national championship and all that, but how much talk has there been about this being the last bastion of the Pac-12, and now this is really a Big Ten national championship as far as starting next year goes? Has there been any talk about just this final run in the Pac, bittersweet? Is it just all eyes on the Big Ten? How would you describe that?
Well, I think it depends on if you're a Husky or a Cougar. I think Husky fans are excited for the future, and they realize that the Pac-12 did this to themselves with absolutely horrific commissioner work over the last 25 years, dating all the way back to Tom Hansen. This conference could not market itself to save its butt and was not able to save its butt. And so Husky fans are like, hey, we like the tradition of the Pac-12, but we're ready to move on because we feel like we belong in a big-time conference. And let's face it, Texas is going to the SEC. If you're not part of the SEC or the Big Ten, you're going to be left behind in college football. And I think Husky fans realize that. And Cougar fans, for them, it's more like, man, can we just salvage a Pac-12 and make it, somewhat relevant where we could potentially have a chance if we won that conference to go to the Final 12 in the future. But yeah, it's sad to see the Pac-12 go, but it's the direction that college football is going in. And if you're not a member of the Big Two, then, forget about it. Just look at all the teams that would have been in the Final 12 this year. Well, we'd have had one, right? Florida State would have been the one non-SEC or or a Big Ten team that would have finished in the top 12 in the standings.
Yeah, as far as you're looking forward to 2024, I think you're right. I believe you're right. Dick, thank you very much. Is Softy landed back in town?
Yeah, he's landed. We're gonna hit the air here in about 30 minutes, and he's working on zero sleep in about the last 30 hours. But you know him; he's got enough adrenaline to handle.
You guys do an incredible job with what you do at KJR. Love to have you on, Dick. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy it. We'll talk again soon. Washington in the championship game after the win against Texas in the Sugar Bowl, Michigan in the overtime victory against Alabama. Which of those 2 games